Hello everyone. Today we're going to discuss the subject of dialectic, historical materialism by Marx.
All right, thank you. So, as my grandfather just said, today we're going to be discussing Marx's theory of dialectical and historical materialism. So, on to the subject. Now, before we get on to dialectical and historical materialism, first I want to explain what the dialectic is. So the dialectic is kind of just another fancier word for contradiction, right? Of course it goes deeper than that, but for the video, for the simplification, let's just say it's a fancy word for contradiction. So when two things enter into a contradiction with each other, or more than two things or whatever, when an entity or a group or whatever enters into a contradiction with another entity or group, it enters into a dialectic. And yeah, that's basically what dialectic means. Anyway, Marx, what he tried to do is he tried to analyze history through the lens of the dialectic. And he kind of viewed history as progressing according to the moving of the gear that is the dialectic. So basically what I mean by that is basically Marx thought that when a society faced contradictions, what it did is it kind of tried to resolve these contradictions, and the resolution of these contradictions kind of leads to a new society or a new societal structure, a new economic structure. So let's take the example of feudalism to explain here, to give an example. So in feudalism, there were obviously a contradiction between the interests of the class interests of the peasants and of the nobility. Now, the class interest of the peasants was to, stop being exploited by the nobility and kind of gain freedom and gain liberation from the power and stranglehold that the nobility had on them. And obviously, the class interest of the nobility was to keep this stranglehold on the peasants because it would help them materially in the long run. Now, these two conflicting interests gave rise to a dialectic or a contradiction because their class interests are contradicting with each other. And this kind of led to a revolution in which the peasants and the lower classes in feudalism overthrew the higher classes and the upper classes in the nobility. And then this led to a new society and a new economic structure. And this economic structure is capitalism. Now, Marx thinks that all of history and the progression of history can be viewed through this lens of the dialectic as a kind of system of class struggle and a history of class struggle that leads to new societies and new economic structures forming. And this view that society is kind of rolls according to the dialectic and according to the contradiction of class interests and class struggle is the view that is called dialectical materialism. So historical materialism would be kind of viewing history through the lens of the dialectic, and dialectical materialism would be the view that societies change according to dialectics produced by differing class interests. So that would pretty much wrap up the video and wrap up the subject in general. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.